Okay. You're ready. Go ahead.
Tim, I'm gonna start since did you have a slide deck?
No, I have the ones that from
Okay.
the presentation at mid-year, so I'm just here to chime in as necessary.
Okay, well, we're one of the things that Tim and I and Eric Fithian talked about in our module at mid-year was strategic planning. And first of all, my background, I have experience in strategic planning. I was senior vice president of a major corporation, strategic planning, for about 5 years. And so I know a lot about, the whys and the what to do's and what not to do's. What I'm going to do tonight is go over the strategic plan that my club in Richmond has in place now, and talk about the components and talk about how it was put together and why it was put together, and more importantly, what they did right. And I think what they did mostly right, but for the most part, there may be some improvements, and then we'll have a general discussion about what other people do. Now, let me start out by saying that my Richmond club is, I think it's either the largest or second largest in the Capital District. So it has a lot of resources. The club had a strategic plan when I first joined back in 2010. And I came from, 16 years prior to that in the Raleigh club. So I've got a lot of experience with large clubs, very little experience with small clubs. So one of the things I'd like to do tonight is, if we have time, is for us to discuss how to take this plan and what we did and adapt it to clubs that don't have the strength of resources and strength of membership that Richmond does, and Raleigh does as well. But let me just start out by saying that in order to put together a strategic plan, you need to keep in mind what Kiwanis is all about. And so I think the primary thing that I would advise in putting together a strategic plan, a club strategic plan, is to remember the primary purpose of Kiwanis, and that is to serve the children of the world. But bullet number 2, don't forget that Kiwanis is more than that. Kiwanis is a social organization. We've all experienced that kind of feeling of emptiness when we weren't able to meet in person. Zoom has been a lifesaver, but it's just not the same thing as meeting with your fellow Kiwanians in person. Whether you meet socially, whether you meet on a project or whatever, doing with other people. The Kiwanis is more than just serving the children of the world. It is a social organization. And finally, I think, and this is, I think, key to having a successful strategic plan, is make sure that you include member input through surveys, and smaller clubs, you may not need surveys so much as at least have a time and place where members can provide their input into what they want to do with their club, because this is, after all, a member-driven club. Or go ahead.
I was gonna say,
please, Pete. I would encourage everybody to talk.
If I could just add to when you're talking about taking surveys, it's also important to kind of digest the data and take a look at what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, because that can help drive the strategic plan. If you know you're stronger in certain areas, then you want to emphasize that. And if you're weaker in certain areas, you want to make sure that you're addressing those weaknesses and improving upon them. In terms of individuals in the club, it might even be worthwhile to do small group meetings after the survey to kind of gauge, why are things certain ways? Why are people believing certain things? For example, in my company, I'm doing the same thing right now at this moment with employee engagement. So we're taking a look at the results of these surveys, and then we are meeting with the folks on our teams to find out, okay, we didn't do so hot in these areas. what are ways that we can improve upon? On the flip side, we did really well in these areas. What do we need to do to keep those scores up? So, putting out the survey is great, but it's also about taking the results and really breaking them down and doing things with the data.
Okay. Krista, you want to give me a new slide? Okay. Focusing on what the Richmond Club did, the latest version of our strategic plan was prepared back in September of 2020. This was, of course, the pandemic shutdown was going pretty much full bore at that point, and we were able to, through Zoom and a lot of input from the members, we were able to work on that during the pandemic. But it's also, I think, important that the entire membership have buy-in, and you present it to the membership, get feedback from them, and ultimately this strategic plan has been approved by the board. The plan contains 4 focus areas with an action plan, and what I'd recommend here is not to bite off more than you can chew. I've seen strategic plans that go, 25 focus areas, and they're useless because they're just too daggone big. Richmond decided that they wanted to focus on 4 areas, put together an action plan based on those 4 focus areas, and leave it at that. There was a committee of 9 members that put this plan together, a lot of input, a lot of give and take, and it was a group effort. So if you could, next slide, please.
Yeah, and Bill, I've got a question.
Okay,
So
sure.
do you do your, I would think, do you do your strategic plan first, and then based upon your strategic plan, does your budget follow that?
Yes. Well, in the corporate world, that's the way we did it. We had a long-term strategic plan, a short-term plan, and then a budget. So that was sort of the progression that we did. I think you have to have in order to have a budget, you got to have an idea of what you want to do. Now, the strategic plan is basically 5 years. Budgets are 1 year. So you need to break down the plan, a longer term plan, into short-term pieces before you put a budget together. But that was the progression. That's a good question, Krista, is the long-term plan, short-term plan, budget. That's the progression that I would recommend. It's a lot easier. So the areas of focus, there were 4 of them. Each of these 4 focus areas had a stated goal, and very simply stated that was, I think it's having a goal for each focus area is important. And then you break that goal down into strategies. Is how do you attain that stated goal? Each of these focus areas has several adopted strategies to attain the goal, and I'm going to go over a couple of examples of those. Now, accountability is we're not in a corporate world, so we don't have we're a volunteer organization, so accountability is a little different from when you're in a corporate situation. But in a larger club like Richmond, we had committees. We have committees that are responsible for each one of these strategies. Each committees were assigned to these strategies, and the committee chairs were responsible as much as volunteers can be held responsible for working toward attaining to implementing the strategy and attaining the goals. Next slide, please. Mm-hmm. The 4 areas of focus in the Richmond plan are membership and engagement, and there's 6 strategies associated with that. The goal is to build, and again, this is very simply stated. I think simplicity is a virtue here. To build, retain, and support a growing and diverse Kiwanis membership. We're all attuned, I think, a lot more than we were, say, 5 years ago with the idea of diversity, because of a lot of things that have transpired in the last several years. Richmond is all about trying to diversify its membership and be more inclusive, and that's part of the stated goal of our membership and engagement focus. Focus area 2 is community impact. There are 5 strategies associated with that. The goal is to perform meaningful service with service to children as our priority, obviously. Focus area 3, our Kiwanis image. 5 strategies. The goal under our Kiwanis image is to enhance the Kiwanis image in our community. And finally, the final focus area is financial viability. Again, 5 strategies. The goal is to ensure financial viability and responsible stewardship. We can't, I think we're all aware that we need financial resources and able to carry out a lot of the projects we do. So let me just stop here and ask if there are questions, or Tim, you want to add anything, or anybody else?
I can add the fact that all of these areas of focus are kind of intertwined with each other. So, membership and engagement, well, that can connect to the Kiwanis image, right? So, for example, last week I went down to Williamsburg and they had their golf tournament. There was Kiwanis branding all over the place. There was bags with the Kiwanis logo on it. Every hole had a placard with the Kiwanis logo on it. So even if you're there and you're participating and you're not a Kiwanian, you have that information there and you see it and it's entrained in your head, and that could lead to help with focus area number 1, getting membership, being engaged. Community impact and financial viability. Obviously, a lot of the work that we do in the community costs money. If we don't have money, if we don't have a good financial plan, we can't do a lot of the things that we do. So a lot of these areas of focus, while they are separate on the strategic plan, they do intertwine with each other, and they do allow without one area of focus, that could bring the whole plan down.
I've got another question. So do you guys take into account, or for like this plan, like for Richmond, did you take into account like your governor's goals? And that's it's going to change like on a yearly basis, but do you think about that when you make these 4 pillars?
Yeah, and if you look at our committee, we had John Morris on the committee. He was district governor that year, so
yes.
Yeah.
Indirectly, yes. I think
by default.
I think it might be, difficult to align a particular governor's goals with a strategic plan just based off of the time frame. So, for example, I see John Rife in my view. John's governor for a year, but these plans are long-term documents. So, if John is coming into year 3 of the strategic plan, it's hard to kind of and obviously with these 4 pillars. There might be things involved with individual pillars, like, for example, if John, as governor, wanted to do a signature project, that could go into community impact for that particular year. But I think these are more broad, and they're less, they're more broad and not as focused on individual years or individual governors or individual international presidents.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it may well be that strategies are the better avenue to try to incorporate district goals and international goals into our, obviously eliminate is one of the goals of trying to get involved with Eliminate, which is an international goal, and it doesn't really lend itself to a local club, other than the fact that we're all encouraged to participate in that. So
I have a question. Where does the succession issue, where does that fit into the focus groups? Who's going to follow succession each time?
In this particular one, I would probably put it with membership and
I think membership engagement.
But because I know when we get into further along in the presentation, we'll talk about some of these individually. But, for example, in the Richmond club, and Bill, you can obviously jump in since you're in the Richmond club, but succession planning might not be a huge focus because they have an inherent plan. But in your club, you might say, hey, I really need a succession plan because I have the same president year over year. Or, it just depends. I mean, when you have a club like Bill's that has over 150 members, there might be people chomping at the bit to be on the board or become president. Whereas a club with 20 or 30 members, it might be difficult to get people to step up and lead.
But I was gonna mention that, Tim. Thanks for that. You're right, exactly right. Both the clubs I've been members of, 150 and Raleigh's about 200, and there's always people who are willing to serve. But having served as several years as lieutenant governor, I know that there are a lot of small clubs that have a hard time with succession. And yeah, if I were to put it anywhere, and it's not so much in our plan here, but I'd put it in membership and engagement.
Well, I've got a question on these slides. Are we able to access these slides later on? Will you provide these?
I will make sure that you get them, John, and anybody. I've got my contact information at the end. And
Okay.
if you send me an email, I'll send you the slides and a copy of the Richmond plan.
Yeah, and I
if
send
you
them to
want that.
everybody at the end.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll post them and send you all the link in the YouTube video.
Great. Thank you.
Also, if you want to see, I can send you a copy of the Richmond strategic plan, but it is on our website. So richmondkiwanis.org, I think it is. You can find the strategic plan on the
Okay.
website.
Thank
It's
you.
public knowledge. Other questions? Okay, Krista, I'm going to just give you an example of a couple of the strategies here. Membership and engagement. One of the strategies is to support and grow our service leadership programs, key clubs, et cetera. The committee responsible. We've got, again, the resources to have quite a few committees and quite a few members on these committees. The committees responsible are CKI for VCU. And I think there are currently four key clubs that we have in our SLP program at Richmond. We are also actively involved in starting up an action club. So anyway, that's the strategy, is to support and grow our SLPs. Community impact. Strategy number 2 is to align service with community needs and our partners. Richmond has a strong tradition of being involved in the Richmond City Schools. Committee responsible there is school projects. We have, not so much during COVID, but we have been and are starting to become again very actively involved in tutoring in the Richmond City Schools, because that is a serious community need in the city of Richmond. Next slide too. 2 more examples. One is for the focus area of our Kiwanis image. The strategy is strategy number 3, update our branding, website, and marketing materials. The committees responsible are communications and public relations. The chairs of those committees are working with their committee members to bring about that strategy. And finally, financial viability. To establish realistic budgets for funding Kiwanis projects. And this is basically through the foundation. Richmond is very fortunate to have a well-endowed foundation. And we have partnerships within the city and surrounding areas. Those 2 committees are responsible for making sure that we have, again, realistic budgets for funding through the foundation for our Kiwanis projects. And that's just examples of 4 strategies. We have 21 overall. You can see those in the plan. I won't put the plan up in detail, but again, it's either available on our website, or if you'll contact me, I will make sure that you get a copy. And next one, I believe, is Krista, if you want to scroll to the next one.
Oh, action plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The action plan is what the committees, once it gets down to the committee level, the strategy, the committees are responsible for putting together an action plan with, again, this is what gets to your point, Krista, to determine the action, the steps, the budgets, the target dates, and establish responsibilities for accomplishing the strategy and the goal. The committee chairpersons are the people that are responsible for communicating the proposed action steps and progress to their directors. We have a board of directors of 9 people. Each director has a certain number of committees that are assigned to them, and the chairpersons of those committees will communicate what they're doing to their directors so that they can answer back to the board. So overall, the board has the overall responsibility for implementing this plan and these strategies. Each director, again, reports on the progress of the committees of the board to the board and the executive committee. And the board of directors reviews the progress of each plan each month to determine the effectiveness of achieving the goals. I might say also, it's not on here, but the board of directors also can amend and change the plan as needs be as we're going through time. And I think these things have been run in the past on about 5-year cycles. So September 2020, September 2025 will be we will have completed our 5-year cycle. And at that point, there will be in all likelihood, if the past is prologue, we will have a reassessment of our plan and perhaps a revision of our plan of our overall strategic plan in as I said, on a 5-year cycle. But that doesn't say you can't amend it on the fly as you need to. And I think that's nope. Okay. And what we did in Williamsburg, and I will, if we have time, I guess we have time, Krista. Open it up for discussion. Tim, do you have anything to add?
Nothing too significant. I mean, I really like a part of Richmond's plan, the branding. I work for a company that spends about $100 million a year on advertising. So thinking that brand awareness is very important. And as you're out there doing your projects, as you're out there, doing your service projects, your fundraisers, etc., it's very important to have that Kiwanis brand out there and have your club brand out there and just push the brand. I mean, I've got my branded coffee cup right here from my office. So got a ton of stuff. I'm a big brand person, so I just wanted to throw that out there too.
And I will add to that. I am stunned, I think is the appropriate word, as you go out in the community and you ask people what their opinion of Kiwanis is, and how many of them look at you like you've got a third eye on your forehead. What is Kiwanis? And that message just does not get out there like it ought to. So just some questions here. And one of the things that I know that as I said, the Richmond Club is one of the larger clubs in the district. What do some of you smaller clubs, what do you do, and what are your reasonable expectations? How do you measure success? How do you plan for the unknown? We're all just coming out of this COVID fiasco, which was not seen, and it affected Kiwanis, I think, very drastically in membership and the ability to get out and do things like what we're supposed to be doing. So how do you plan for the unknown? And what does your club do? So I'll be interested to hear from those of you on the call. John, what does your club do? John Reif.
You're on mute. Still on mute.
John Rife, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Some people like it that way, John.
Actually, I think when I was governor, a lot of people put me on mute more than likely. We're having our biggest fundraiser this next weekend. We do a 5K run for health and fitness, and we have a corporate sponsor that's worked with us pretty closely, and we try to get the community involved with that. So that's one of our fundraisers. But the pandemic's been pretty tough on trying to keep the group together. That has been difficult, especially for small clubs. In Division 17, we've got 12 clubs. I think we've got more clubs. Jeff Dawson's on the phone call. He was my president when I was governor. I think we have more clubs until we got West Virginia. So we're in a pretty rural area. Getting around the clubs is pretty difficult. So I was excited to hear what you're saying tonight. I think Jeff's club wise, we just exchanged an email. They have a strategic plan, which is quite impressive for a club their size. Jeff may want to kind of chime in and see on his strategic plan for the Wise Club, but pretty impressive for a club of Wise size to have a strategic plan. I think we all should have that kind of a plan, but it's hard to have the resources and as you're doing, work in the community.
Yeah. I got a question for you, Josh. You were instrumental in getting I think you were instrumental in getting an e-club established, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yes.
How do you think all this would fit in with an e-club? How do you do a plan with an e-club, and are they being done?
Well, I think it's actually really critical for an e-club because the theory, so for those that don't know, the e-club has members that are from outside of the capital district, right? So it's not just people in one physical location. There are people in multiple parts of the district and even multiple states. And so in some ways, a strategic plan is really critical because people don't see each other all the time. So you need to think about pipeline succession for who's going to take office. Signature project is actually something the group's discussing right now. What would a signature project look like for an e-club? Most signature projects that your clubs have, knowing a lot of the clubs you're from, they're very well-known, large-scale, in-person things that people look forward to every year or that have a deep impact for service. So for an e-club, it's about figuring out how do you come up with an idea that you can scale over the years, and a strategic plan helps with that. So maybe we start at small scale 1 year and think about how you want to grow it every year, knowing that it may be something that's a virtual event or something that's done simultaneously in different communities by people who are in an e-club. But I'll just end with this. I think strategic planning has been critical because the other thing, like fundraising, is a challenge for an e-club because there's fundraisers that are easy to do in person, more challenging online. But the e-club was successful in doing research on virtual fundraisers. So this year, the club did a virtual flower sale, partnering with a company where you could order your flower seeds directly. The company shipped them, so the club didn't have to worry about supply chain of having to get the stuff and mail it themselves. And they were able to get 50% of the profit from that flower sale. So that was kind of an end result of strategic planning, thinking through, how do we start identifying projects, implementing one, seeing how it goes, and then figuring out if we want to do it again in the future. So I think that the e-club has tried to put some of this into practice. It's a little more challenging because some of the easy parts of strategic planning, when you've got people who can get around a table, are missing, but it's been a pretty successful opportunity for them to kind of take a look at some of this. The e-club's only 2 years old, so there's still a lot of success to measure, but it's definitely been something that we've started.
Yeah. And I think they're in our division, they've done a really good job. And like they have a yearly planning meeting and they produce a document. I'll see if they'll let me send it out to folks when I send out the presentation. But it's really good how they say, here's our statistics, here's our membership, here's what we did, here's what we want to do. I think that those are really good. And it's not, it's not anything super difficult, but it's them talking together and creating this document and kind of them holding themselves to that. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think the DC Club also does like an annual report that they
Mhm.
pull a lot of the data directly from the monthly reports that are filed by the secretary. So you have all that information in there, service hours, et cetera. So
Mhm.
they put that out almost as a part of their brand every year, right? So now I'm putting on my marketing hat where it's a document that's produced, and you can go out to the community and say, hey, look at all these great things that we did. We had X amount of service hours, Y amount of fundraising. We took that fundraising amount and we were able to offer scholarships to Z amount of children. So I think,
Mhm.
we need to do a better job, I think, of bragging about what we do, because in all of our communities, we're doing great stuff. We're putting on great programs. We're donating money. We're raising money. But to kind of piggyback a little bit on what John was talking about, it's tough for the smaller clubs when you don't have the resources. So if you're in a club like Bill and he has a committee of 9 or 10 people, I know Bob Wright's also on the call. We're in Leesburg, we have 14 members. So it's all hands on deck for every single project. And it gets exhausting because you don't have the luxury of like a Richmond or a Roanoke or a Williamsburg where you can divide and conquer and have 10 folks work on this signature project, 10 folks work on this fundraiser. If everyone's hands aren't into it, you're not going to get things done with the smaller clubs. So membership is critical. It's recruiting those hands to help. I think Katie mentioned this a lot at mid-year. Was it more hands do light work or something along those lines? So the more folks that we have involved, the more resources we have, just kind of not even talking about financial at this point, just people. The more people we have, the more we can get done and the more strategic our planning can be.
Mhm. Well, and looking at some of the things that you are flashing up on the screen, like some of your strategies, when you start thinking of strategic planning, I always think like, oh man, this is going to be so hard. And it's going to be like, I need to write like a bunch of stuff, but like the things that you had, Bill, were very easy to read. And so I was like, I guess you just start with very, very basic things, and then you can pick what makes sense out of those.
That to me is simplicity is the key of a strategic plan. Otherwise, you get a 50-page document, you're going to put it on a shelf somewhere and never open it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a unique situation over here on the Eastern Shore. Most of our clubs are very small and very distant. So we formed a Kiwanis car show group where the 6 clubs are working together to help each other do car shows. And we're putting together some type of committee that would go around each area to help the car shows work. And this is our second year doing it. And after the first year, everybody knows what Kiwanis is. So we're taking the idea of a small group and making it a bigger group by the whole division working together.
Excellent point, Steve. We're all Kiwanians. We all have the same goal. I think, the more we can work together, the synergies that we get from working together are just remarkable. And that may be part of your strategic plan.
Yeah, because a lot of the clubs don't have the manpower.
Right.
We're maybe one of the largest clubs in the Eastern Shore, so we could do the manpower, and we're helping each other. Each club would have a specific job at a car show. Right.
Jeff, I apologize if I cut you off earlier. Did you have anything to add about? I think John said your club Jeff Dotson has a strategic plan. Did you have anything to add?
No, not a lot, but we do have one. It's probably due to be renewed by now. We've had obviously the complications with COVID.
Yeah.
Everybody else, but we're a small club, 30 plus members, but we do a lot for our community. Probably our signature projects is our Christmas parade. We do the Christmas parade every year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very proud of 5 endowments that we have at UVA Wise. We have $1.1 million in those 5 endowments. And we sponsor CKI there and the Key Club at our local high school. So we stay busy for a small club, but obviously things have been affected lately. So with COVID.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing too with, I know Jeff mentioning like the, CKI and SLPs, we talked about that a little bit, but I know part of the E-Club that Josh is a member of, Josh and Jen, is bringing the Key Clubbers back home in essence and getting them in the Kiwanis family. I know Jen Wolf has been instrumental in doing a CKI club with kind of the same goal of getting them more involved, because they definitely, for those folks that have been to a Key Club convention, you see the passion and the energy, and it's 1,000 kids, just and they have the passion, they have the energy for service, and it's kind of like, all right, let's relight that fire and get those folks converted back to Kiwanians. A lot of people on this call were past SLP members at some point in time, and it's really, trying to get those folks back into Kiwanis. Okay, you had a great time at Key Club, you had a great time at CKI, let's get you into Kiwanis.
That brings, if I might go off message here for a second and talk to Josh and Jen, if you both belong to the E-Club. I ran into Ivani Yamamoto this past week, and I don't know whether you guys know, but she has left Kiwanis. She had a child, and I think she just got overwhelmed with school and trying to raise a child, and she might be a good candidate if you want to reach out for membership in an E-Club. Just because it gives give her an opportunity to continue, as I know she has her heart in it, with Kiwanis, but not have to commit to meetings where she had to get a babysitter, yada yada yada. So
no, absolutely, that's great, and that is, I think, one of the things, as Tim was mentioning, the E-Clubs have been a way to re-engage our SLP alumni,
right,
some of whom live in communities both in the Capital District and outside of the Capital District that don't have a physical Kiwanis club. So this has given them a way to rejoin the Kiwanis family without needing to start their own Kiwanis club.
right.
And it is a flexible option. Absolutely. Joining a meeting on Zoom is a little bit easier than going in person.
Yeah.
The service that the E-Club does, often is either virtual or connects people locally. So, I think she's a great example of somebody who might fit well with the style of an E-Club, and that really has been an attractive option. Certainly some E-Clubs that exist in the Kiwanis world are just Kiwanis clubs that meet virtually, right? So they're all in the same physical place, like they all live locally, but their style is meeting virtually. This E-Club truly is bringing people from all over. So if you're a Kiwanis club, I know some Kiwanis clubs have a satellite of their club that might meet in a different way. Getting creative and thinking strategically about what can you do to structure an experience that attracts more people to join and serve. I think the E-Club has really proven that is an option. And, Bill, I appreciate that lead. Certainly we want to keep people in the Kiwanis family rather than lose them. And if that means trading them to a club that better fits their style or better fits their life, that's better than losing members from Kiwanis. So I think, that's a great point.
Do you have that contact information? I'll be glad to share it with you if you need it.
I do. I've got her email address, so I can reach out and check in with her.
Okay, good. Governor Alana, do you have any words of wisdom for us?
Oh, wow. Do I have any words of wisdom? I think it's always good to, be mindful of where you've been and like you all said, strategically plan where you're going. You have to definitely have a vision. You have to be inspired. You have to be open to new ideas. I think we definitely get very set in our ways of doing it. We've always done it like that, and therefore you can't see the opportunities or even embrace that there are new resources available to help us move forward and to, do a better job of leading and serving the children of the world. So yeah, I think that's a part of the strategic piece of it, that, you know, just stay open-minded.
Open for other comments, or I don't know what our time frame is here. I think we're running short.
Yeah, the Jaguars are on the clock in 15 minutes. So I think John needs to.
Well, they got Trevor Lawrence last year, right? So. All right. Well, thank you, Bill, and thank you, Tim, and all the participants. I think that was a good discussion. We had some good questions that came up, and we
Excellent.
thank you for your very thoughtful answers. So I will stop recording.